Hey guys, welcome back to another video where we are going to look at AgilePoint connector for Amazon Redshift. Amazon Redshift is a fully managed petabyte scale data warehouse service in the cloud. It provides fast performance for complex analytical queries and massive parallel processing. Redshift is a good choice for organizations that need to analyze large amounts of data quickly and easily. Let's look at this connector in action. So I'm in my AgilePoint portal right now, and the first step which you are going to do is to create an access token to connect to Amazon Redshift. Now, before we do that, I'm going to show you how this looks within the Amazon Developer Console. So I'm going to go to the Amazon Developer Console over here, click on Amazon Redshift. And as you can see, the first step would be to create a cluster. In my case, I've already created a cluster, so I'm going to drill down into that cluster. And there are a few properties which are important within this screen. So first one is the cluster identifier. The other one is endpoint. These are the informations which would be needed to create the access token. And if you further drill down into properties tab over here, you can get the database name. So I've created a dummy database called dev. It's running on port number 5439. And the admin username is AWS user. So all this information would come in handy while creating the access token. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my home page. I'm going to create an access token. An access token can be created at a global level and reused across multiple applications, or I can create an access token at an app level and restrict it to be used within a certain app itself. In my case, I'm going to create a global level access token. So I'm going to go to Manage, App Builder, Global Access Token. I'm going to go ahead and create a new token. I already have a couple of tokens created here. I'm going to say add token. There's a dedicated token type for Amazon Redshift. I'm going to select that, give it a nice looking name. I'm going to call it Redshift Demo 2. Now it supports two modes of authentication. I can go with an ODBC provided connection type or a data API type. Within ODBC connection type, I can either use a quick configuration mode, or if I wanted to manually provide my connection string, I can do that as well. You can refer to Amazon Redshift documentation for this. However, I'm going to just show you quickly how quick configure mode works. So you have to copy the endpoint. If you go back, you can copy the endpoint from here. You have to provide the username, which is going to be the admin username, which is provided over here. The admin password. When you created that user, it would have generated, you would have specified a password, so you can use that as well. Now, also on the server side, you have to set up the ODBC connection, and Amazon has made it easier. You can always go back to cluster and download a driver, ODBC driver for your operating system. In this case, maybe Windows, and you can set it up as well. So this is in addition to setting up the access token. However, most of the times you might end up using the data API, and that's what I'm going to use for today's demo. Now, what it is asking me to specify is the access key ID and the secret key. The way to obtain it is go back to Amazon, go to users, drill down, select the user for which you wanted to use the access token for, go to security credentials, and you can create a new access token over here. In my case, I'm going to just use this one, existing one. I'm going to specify my access key ID. I'm going to quickly put in my secret key, select a region. I'm going to say this is hosted in US East Coast. A cluster identifier, I'm going to go back to Amazon, go back to Redshift, drill down into the cluster, and copy the cluster identifier. For username, I'm going to again go back to the developer console over here, go to properties, copy the username, and for the database name, I'm going to just put dev over here and click test connection. It tells me the connection is successful. I can go ahead and save it as well. In my case, I have already created the token, so I'm going to reuse that one. So next we are going to go to App Builder and see what activities are available within the Redshift activity group. So you can see there is a dedicated activity group called Amazon Redshift. Under that, there are 5 activity types which are available. Insert record for inserting a new record within Redshift. Update record for updating the information. Query record for querying multiple records out of Redshift based on your criteria. You can invoke a stored procedure and you can delete the record as well. So I'm going to actually show you all of these configurations one by one. So I've created a sample business process over here for creating an employee profile within an employee table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the tables I'm using. So I'm in my Amazon Redshift area again. I have a database called dev. Under that, there is a schema called public. And under that, I have created a table called employee. And there is a stored procedure as well. Under the employee table, if I click run, it has following columns: employee ID, employee name, salary, department, date of birth, date of joining, and insurance. And it currently has only one record. And I also created a stored procedure which takes username as an input and a user ID as an input and finds the record based on the user ID and updates the employee name in this case. We are going to go back and see the configuration. So if somebody fills in the employee information on this form, next it is going to insert the record. So let's look at the configuration. Give it a nice looking name. Connect to Redshift by selecting the access token from the drop down. Next, select the schema under which your table exists. Select the available table name. And then all you have to do is provide a mapping. On the left hand side, you see the AgilePoint schema. On the right hand side, you see the Amazon Redshift table schema. You can just do a quick mapping over here. Similarly, I'm going to have a form where I'm going to update some of the user information. And in this case, I'm going to update the employee record. Configuration is pretty much the same. You can select your connection to Redshift, select the schema, table name, and then you can specify the mapping of data, what you want to update for this particular record. So you can specify those mappings between the AgilePoint schema and the employee table. And you can specify your where clause. So it brings down the schema. You can move the columns over here. So here I am specifying my condition where I say employee ID equal to whatever value is available in this variable which is coming from my form. I'm going to go ahead and click finish. Next, I'm going to query multiple records. Now, query multiple records, it can return you back multiple records as I said. So it should support repeating schema controls which can show multiple records. So again, over here, I connect to Redshift, specify my schema and table name, specify my response mapping. So in this case, if you see, I'm mapping my top level node or the response coming back from Redshift to a repeating node, which is subform in my case, so that multiple records are created. And then map individual leaf nodes over here. And I can specify my conditions as well, just like I did for update activity, but I'm going to just leave it as blank, so it will bring down all the records. And I can specify the order by, sort by, and row limit clauses as well. Next, I'm going to show the results on a form, and then I'm going to update some data and employee name by calling the stored procedure. Again, the top part remains the same. And for my request parameters, I'm going to specify which two parameters I want to be passed to the stored procedure. And in the response, if there is any response and I wanted to capture it in my process variable or form variable, I can map that as well. And lastly, I've put a timer activity so that we can track how the demo is progressing before I finally delete the record. So over here, again, I connect to Redshift, specify my schema and table name, and I can specify the condition of which record needs to be deleted. So once the process is ready, you can go ahead and publish it out. I've already done that. I'm going to go to Work Center. Under my apps, I'm going to open this form. It is telling me the auto-generated employee ID is 5, and I'm going to provide a name. Department would be sales. For date of birth, I'm going to just select a date of birth over here. Date of joining, I'll just select today's date. Salary, and this person needs insurance. And go ahead and click submit. Now at this point of time, a business process has been kicked off. So if I go to tasks, I have a task waiting over here. I'm going to bring up the process viewer. I'm going to open it in a new tab so that you guys can follow. So it is showing me that the record has been inserted. So if we go back, click run on this one, it shows me the second record, Steve Smith, has been inserted with the corresponding data. So I'm going to go back to process monitor. I'm going to drill down into my next activity, participants, and open the task form. I'm going to update a couple of things. I'm going to update the name. I'm going to also update the salary and click submit. Now if I go back to Redshift and click run again, you see the name has been updated to Steve Smith 1 and the salary has been updated to $260,000. So the update activity worked. It has also queried multiple records. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this form. And as you can see, this form is showing me multiple records listed over here, which have been retrieved with the query activity. Next, I'm going to go to the next tab, stored procedure. Now, my employee ID, if you remember, was 5. I'm going to put that and rename him back to Steve Smith and click submit. If I go back again and click run, the employee name has been reset to Steve Smith. If I go back to my process monitor, it's right now sitting on a timer activity, which should elapse anytime now. And finally, it deleted the record. So if we go back and click run, that row is no longer existing in my Redshift database. So with that, we come to the end of this demo. As you saw, we have a dedicated connector for Amazon Redshift, which can be integrated within your larger business process. Thanks a lot for your time.